Hello everyone and welcome to the last video of our series. We have built the foundation with the purpose, ethics, governance and management. Now we are going to explore the last domain of the new global internal audit standard, domain 5 performing internal audit services. My name is Rashid Ladnani. I am certified internal auditor and also certified ISO 9001 lead auditor with over 20 years of experience in finance and auditing. This domain focuses on the execution of the internal audit services. It provides a framework for planning engagement, conducting audit plan, and communicating results. The key principles for performing internal audit services are: first, Principle 13, plan engagements effectively. This means developing a systematic and risk-based blueprint for every audit. It's about being proactive, not reactive. Next, Principles 14, conduct engagement work. This is the execution phase, where we implement the work program, gather evidence, and develop our funding. This is where the plan becomes action. And finally, Principle 15, communicate engagement results. This principle is about sharing our conclusion clearly and, just as importantly, ensuring management follow up with action plan. This is how we ensure our work drives real improvement. Together, these three principles form the essential life cycle of every audit engagement: plan, do, report. They are the practical foundation for everything we do, whether we are providing assurance or advice. Now let's explore each of these in detail. Let's start with Principle 13, plan engagement effectively. This is where every successful audit begins. Thorough planning is our blueprint. It ensures our work is rigorous, focused, and deliver exactly what our stakeholders expect. This principle is operationalized through 6 sequential standards that guide us in building this blueprint. First, Standard 13.1, engagement communication. This establishes that we must communicate effectively through the entire engagement. Planning isn't done in silo. It requires ongoing dialogue with stakeholders from the very start. Next, Standard 13.2, engagement risk assessment. We must begin by understanding the activity and review to properly assess its related risks. This risk assessment is the fundamental input that informs everything that follows. Then, Standard 13.3, engagement objectives and scope. Based on those risks, we must clearly define and document exactly what we aim to achieve, our objectives, and the boundaries of our work, our scope. This leads us to Standard 13.4, evaluation criteria. We must identify the most relevant criteria, whether regulation, internal policies, or best practices, that we will use to evaluate the activity and measure against. With the what and why defined, we move to Standard 13.5, engagement resources. Here we identify the type and quantity of resources, the people, skills, time, and technology needed to achieve our objective effectively. Finally, we synthesize all of these into Standard 13.6, work program. We develop and document a detailed work program, our step-by-step guide to achieve the engagement objectives efficiently and thoroughly. In essence, these 6 standards provide a logical sequential framework that takes us from initial communication and risk assessment all the way to detailed action plan. This disciplined approach is what ensures our work is aligned with stakeholders' expectations and sets the stage for a successful audit. Now, let's move from planning to action with Principles 14, conduct engagement work. This is the core of the audit engagement, where we execute our plan, gather the evidence, and build our case. This phase is where the blueprint we created becomes reality. This principle is powered by 6K standards that create a complete and rigorous process from evidence to conclusion. First, Standard 14.1 Information and Evidence. This is our foundational step. We must identify and collect information that is relevant, reliable, and most importantly, sufficient to support our conclusion. This is the raw material of our audit. Next, Standard 14.2 Engagement, Observation, and Potential Funding. Here we become analysts. We meticulously analyze the collected information to develop potential funding. What is the story the data is telling us? What are the gaps of issue we are seeing? Then Standard 14.3 Evaluation of Funding. Not all potential funding are created equal. This standard requires us to evaluate each one to determine its significance. We assess the root cause and the potential impact to separate minor issues from major deficiencies. Based on that evaluation, we move to Standard 14.4 Recommendation and Action Plan. The goal of our work is improvement. This standard guides us to develop pragmatic recommendations and work with management to create actionable plans that address the root causes of the issues we have identified. Once our findings are evaluated, Standard 14.5 Engagement Conclusion requires us to step back and formulate an overall conclusion. This conclusion summarizes the entire engagement's results and answers the critical question: did we achieve our objectives? And finally, supporting every single step is Standard 14.6 Engagement Documentation. We must diligently record all information and evidence that supports our results and conclusion. This isn't just administrative work. This is what makes our work defensible, repeatable, and of high quality. Together, these 6 standards form a powerful and complete engine for value creation. They ensure our conclusions are not just opinion, but are built on solid foundation of evidence that is analyzed, evaluated, concluded upon, and meticulously documented. This rigorous process is what makes our work credible and allows us to move confidently to the final step, communication. Finally, we arrive at the principle that unlocks all the value of our work. Principle 15, Communicate engagement results. Think of it this way: an audit that isn't effectively communicated is an audit that never happened. This is where we translate all our analysis and evidence into actionable insight that drive real change. This critical principle is built on 2 non-negotiable standards that close the loop. First, Standard 15.1 Communication of Final Engagement Results. This is more than just sending a report. It's about clearly, persuasively, and objectively communicating our conclusion and recommendation to the right stakeholders. Our goal is to ensure they are understood, agreed upon, and impossible to ignore. This is our key deliverable. And second, Standard 15.2 Confirmation of Implementation. Our responsibility doesn't end with the report. This standard mandates that we must follow up and confirm that management has implemented the agreed upon action plan. This is how we move from making a recommendation to actually achieve a remediation and improvement. In essence, these 2 standards form a complete cycle. We report the finding and we verify the fix. This is the ultimate proof of our function's value. It's through this process, communication and follow-up, that we transform our work from a simple assessment into a catalyst for concrete, positive change within the organization. And with that, we have reached the end of our journey through Domain 5 and indeed the complete set of global internal audit standards. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we have covered together in this series. We have built our understanding from the ground up, exploring all 5 domains that form the blueprint for a modern internal audit function. We start with domain 1, defining our core mission and purpose. We established our foundation with domain 2, the ethics and professionalism that define who we are. We then looked at domain 3, examining how proper governance empowers and oversees the function. From there, we moved to domain 4, covering the strategic management of the function's operations. And finally, we concluded with domain 5, the hands-on performance of audit services. This framework provides a complete ecosystem for delivering undeniable value. I sincerely hope this deep dive has been a valuable resource for you and has demystified these new standards. Now that we understand the auditor's toolkit, the questions become, how do we apply it to the real world? How do we truly understand an organization's governance, risk management, and control processes to provide deep, meaningful assurance? This led us perfectly into our next series. We will now dive deep into the core subject matters of our work: governance, risk management, and control processes. We will break down this complex concept into practical knowledge you can use on every engagement. To make sure you don't miss it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your attention and see you very soon.